Hello, folks. Special edition of the Daily Crypto Byte. I'm here joined with Dr. Crypto, Jon Najarian, as well as Monty, and our very special guest, Mike the Investor. Mike, congrats on recently reaching 60,000 YouTube subs. Mike also did a video on Solana earlier this morning that I definitely encourage you guys to check out. But gentlemen, how are we this morning?
Kick it off, Mike.
And I'm doing well. I just want to say first and foremost, thanks for having me. You know, I've watched a few of your Daily Crypto Bytes, and it's nice and straight to the point. So thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Gosh, I've been very impressed by what you're doing, and certainly Monty and CJ were on top of your vast success earlier than I was, which isn't surprising, Mike. They're on top of things a lot faster than me anyway. But folks, if you want to follow Mike and you don't already, it's Miketha Investa, Investor, Mike the Investor.
Yes, sir.
On Twitter anyway. And he's got a very colorful account, and I'm sure a lot of folks will get a lot out of this segment today, as well as hopefully migrating on over. And maybe by the end of the day, you'll have 70,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. That's very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
What are your favorite protocols right now, Mike? I mean, you're not a maximalist, are you? I assume that you trade an awful lot of cryptos like we do.
I would say I'm not a maximalist. I do hold a few cryptos, quite a few cryptos. I'm not really a huge trader. I don't really trade too much. I'm more of a old style investor, if you will. I kind of like to hold and earn passive income, you know, and that's kind of my style on it and everything like that. But I do take profits if it makes sense, for sure.
Speaking of today, interest payments hit in Voyager, my favorite day of the month. That always feels good, raking in that passive income. So
it definitely feels good. Definitely feels good. Mine hit like 7:50 a.m. Central Time, so I was like, wow.
By the way, are you trading through Voyager as well, Mike?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Well, there's a big endorsement. Mike the Investor is a Voyager fan, as we are. It's crypto made easy, folks. It's a super easy app on your phone. They pay you up to double digits for your deposited crypto, just as Mike and Monty just said. And you pay zero commission, 60 plus assets. So pretty fantastic platform. And more people coming on over there, Mike.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree with you. They're very easy. And, you know, I definitely think tech always wins, but I also believe simplicity wins as well, because when we talk about the crypto space, it's so technical, right? Even the basics of it is so technical. So I think crypto projects and companies and brokerages and exchanges such as Voyager that have that simplicity aspect gives it that, you know, first mover advantage to really help that true adoption.
Very well said.
So before we get to some further thoughts on like macro market movements, I do want to go and recap a little bit of last night's price action and what we're looking at today. So as I had mentioned, not a whole lot of volatility, and I have the Bollinger Bands highlighted today because we are reaching a period in time in which the bandwidth indicator, or in other words, the distance between the upper and lower bands, is really decreasing, which is a reflection of a lack of volatility in the overall market, as well as volume. And this is something that we saw somewhat similar to the previous supply squeeze and that markup phase that we did have. So while we are seeing a little bit of weakness in the technicals per se, I do think that the supply and dynamic characteristics of the market are still incredibly strong for Bitcoin. And this goes more to the longer term, so let's say weekly perspective, as opposed to just intraday price movements. One chart that I did want to share just briefly before kicking it back to you guys is an indicator by Will Clementi that I do like very much, known as the Bitcoin Illiquid Supply, RSI. And this has done a good job of locating supply shocks, specifically in Bitcoin, kind of throughout history. And we had one very recently at our local bottom at around 29 to 30K. And as you can see, each one of these periods in time is really historically been met with a lot of bullish price action from a macro perspective. So even if we do have a little bearish momentum and a lack of bullish price action in the short term, say even if we go down to worst case something like a 40K level or a 42K level, excuse me, I still think the overall supply and demand dynamics within the market are setting up for a very bullish fall and potentially even into the winter season. But with that being said, let's pass it back. Monty, any comments on recent price action?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly bring this to your guys' attention as well. I think it's definitely worth noting. ETH is performing very well over the last 48 hours. A very nice uptick in price. We're breaking out of this sort of range we've been in over the last 2 weeks, kind of between 3,400 and 3K, which I think bodes very well for, Ethereum. We've talked a lot about how the gas fees, because of this NFT craze, have kind of been a strain on the network. There's been a ton of network congestion over the last 2 weeks as people rush to mint and also buy NFTs. But it seems now it's breaking out of that. And that could be partially due to the fact that, a tremendous amount of speculation has gone to other blockchains like Solana and Cardano as well. So that may be freeing up ETH a bit here to make a move headed into the weekend. So I'm just encouraged by this and just wanted to quickly bring it to your guys' attention before we move on here.
Thank you for that, Monty. So let's get to the main event, which is Mike. I want to ask you, Mike, where do you see the market currently? You mentioned previously you're more of an investor than a trader. What do you see kind of going into this final quarter of the year, and how have you chosen to position yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I still have a very long-term look on the crypto market. And so for me, even with cryptos I bought late last year of 2020, even when we saw the huge dip when Bitcoin went down to 29K, I was still up so much money on cryptos I bought, right? And so for me, I feel like when we know crypto is only going up in the future, I I don't think and this is just for me speaking for myself. For me, I think it makes more sense to hold assets that I believe is going to be here when the smoke clears, still being able to earn passive income. And so instead of me trying to, time this extremely volatility market. And so where I kind of see the market going towards the end of the year, I still think we're going to be at higher prices. This is just what I think. I still think we're going to see a six-figure Bitcoin this year as well. That's what I think. And so with all that being said, Bitcoin raises all tides. And so with that happening, I believe we're going to, like Monty said, we see Ethereum starting to rise. And as we saw the Ethereum starting to rise, if we just look back over the past 3 to 4 days, Bitcoin was around like 42.5% as far as like dominance. And now we look, it's like a little bit under that. And we see the Ethereum price has risen. And so we can kind of see where certain money is going with the market. And so we understand that Ethereum also is kind of the segue for all of altcoins, right? And so when Ethereum pumps, it helps raise other altcoins because that money flows into the other smaller coins. And so with that being said, I still think we are on track to continue to move higher up in prices. That's just me, what I personally think. So me, I'm still holding. There are certain cryptos that I have that if it hits a certain price target that I have in mind, I will take profits, of course. But for the most part, I'm just holding and building passive income because I'm not using any of my crypto assets, to live off of. So I'm 29 years old. I'll be 30 next year. And so I'm just kind of building that wealth, right?
So you mentioned some of those smaller assets as well. I've heard you talk about BitTorrent, BTT, as well as Digibyte. Are those some of those assets you're talking about in terms of hitting critical price levels, or any of those like smaller altcoins that you're interested in right now, particularly?
Yeah, so I mean, BTT, I still think we're a little ways out from hitting certain price targets, just in my opinion. But that is a crypto I am looking to cash out on, of course. Digibyte, I'm looking to take a percentage, but I will still always hold a certain amount of Digibyte. So I have a nice amount on Voyager, and then I've been holding Digibyte since it was like fractions of a penny on my ledger. So I'm still holding strong on Digibyte there. I also think Iota is going to make some big steps as well. And one thing I like about Iota that's not talked about a lot is that it's so ahead of its time, right? We start hearing about the potential problems of quantum computers. Well, last year they were talking about that was 15, 20 years down the road. Well, now they're talking us potentially 5 years down the road. So we could just see how technology is speeding up. And so I think crypto projects that have that first mover advantage gives them that leg up in certain instances.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Mike. And I think you touched on something really important there. So I just want to bring up this chart, and that is Bitcoin dominance, because I think that this chart right here is going to be super important to watch to finish this year. Right now we're headed back down, like you pointed out, Mike, to sub 42 levels. And for me, this level right here at 40% Bitcoin dominance is going to be very critical. And I see a couple ways this could play out in the interim. First off, we could get a bounce from this level, and we could see Bitcoin start showing strength into the rest of the market. I think that is the less likely of the two scenarios. And the other scenario is this marks as kind of a breakout or a breakdown level, rather. And, breaking below this level could see a beginning of a, parabolic move in a lot of the altcoins, which I think, is a realistic scenario. It's something we saw sort of to the end of 2020. We saw the alts rip while Bitcoin kind of, hit some resistance, but then we saw Bitcoin make some parity with the rest of the market, here, as you can see, as it rallied to the end of the year. But obviously, this is what happens when Bitcoin dominance breaks below critical levels. It can really fall off a cliff. And given some of the utility, Mike was just talking about just a few assets, but we've seen in just the last year so much more utility pop up in the crypto space. It makes sense that Bitcoin's store of value utility is only, now making up roughly 40% of the overall crypto market cap. So I agree with you, Mike. I think that this chart right here can really tell the tale for the rest of the year, and I will be watching it very closely.
Well said.
And I think some of the things that are going to go on, guys, with whatever ends up becoming the second, I guess they're more or less calling it CARES stimulus. So they've agreed, the Congress has, to $580 billion. Both the Senate and House apparently are on board with that. And that'll be mainly infrastructure. Then there's the $3.5 trillion infrastructure that includes a lot of, I guess, green deals, a lot of social safety nets and things like that. And that will be parsed out over 10 years. So I don't think it'll be as large as that, the 3.5 trillion. I still think they'll get something. It might even be half of that. We'll have to see. But those are spending by government that definitely gets people focused in on cryptocurrencies, things that like Bitcoin gather their assets gather their value by their scarcity. So I think there'll be a renewed focus depending on how big the package is and when it gets passed. Probably the last week in September or so is what Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are saying is when we can expect something, assuming that it doesn't get blocked by either the moderates or the progressives. We will likely get something, but I don't know how big it'll be yet. Nonetheless, I do think it'll be a catalyst for cryptos, in particular Bitcoin.
Yeah, I could definitely see that playing out. Mike, I got a question for you. I know you're, a great fundamental analyst, and a lot of hype recently has been around not just NFTs, but also the blockchains they're hosted on, like Ethereum and Solana. I just want to get your, kind of opinion on how those sort of assets are going to perform towards the end of the year, and kind of what your outlook is on those sort of blockchains like ETH and Solana.
Yeah, I definitely think ETH and Solana are both going to be here. I definitely think they're going to have market share when it comes to the second layer, which I've talked about in some previous videos. And for me, I think right now NFTs are back kind of in that potential, if you want to call it bubble stage potentially. And so I think the price movement is going to depend on, from that aspect, how high the NFT bubble goes, right? But at the same time, Ethereum and Solana have more use cases than just NFTs, right? DeFi, and other things like that. And so I look at what these projects are doing long term as well. And so I believe the NFT has definitely contributed to them moving up in price with everything like that. And definitely with Solana, a lot of developers are building on it. A lot of people are minting their own NFTs now because it's super inexpensive and super fast, and then it can process up to 50,000 or even more transactions per second. That's extremely huge, in the space. And so when we look at that and we just look at all of the moving pieces with Solana, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. And so I definitely think I think we still have steam left in the tank. But at the same time, looking at a long-term perspective, if you're looking at buying even Ethereum or Solana, long-term, I definitely think they're going to be higher priced. But if we're looking at the two, Solana definitely is way more inexpensive to kind of build out a position in compared to Ethereum.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And, I watched your video this morning on Solana. I definitely recommend anyone that hasn't seen it yet to go check that out, because I think you do a great job explaining kind of why this price action has been occurring over the last couple of weeks. So I want to pose another question to you here. What happens if this NFT space is kind of a bubble? Do you think this Solana price action can continue? Because like you said, Ethereum obviously has plenty of other utility beyond NFTs. We've seen DeFi bolster the value in the past. Do you think we can see something similar play out for Solana over the next couple of years?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no exact date, but I believe at some point in time, we will see Solana at $1,000 coin. That's what I believe. I mean, there's too much money backing. There's too many handwritings on the wall. I mean, just not to really talk about everything I covered in the video, but we still got so many positive catalyst pieces, for Solana that's haven't even contribute to the prices. And when we look at what Solana's doing now, I mean, yes, there's FOMO going on, but we also have more awareness just from institutional investors, but also retail investors as well. And so I definitely think that's gonna, even when it cools off, I think everything is going through now will help it build that support to still be a lot higher than where it was originally when it took off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I think you made a great point in your video about how, the institutional presence has been key to Solana and will continue to be key. And I definitely agree with you there. So one last thing I wanted to share today, and then we'll wrap it up. This is just, I love my job. I love crypto. It's been a crazy couple of weeks here, and I've had the chance to talk about, not just crypto, but some other things I love as well, like soccer. I talked about how the PSG token was integral in Paris Saint-Germain signing Messi. And now today I get to talk about something else that I very much enjoy talking about, if I can get the screen to share here. And that is NFTs and baseball cards. Let me just share my screen here. And that's so Avalanche, AVAX, and Topps and MLB just struck up a deal. And they will be releasing some Topps NFT baseball cards. For those of you who watch this channel regularly, you probably know that I'm a big collector of, pretty much anything, shoes, cards. So as you can see, I love Topps. Got a Shohei Ohtani here, Luis Robert here. This collection drops in just a few days. I'll definitely be checking this out. But I just wanted to quickly mention that AVAX actually has been performing very well off the back of this news. It was just announced last night at about 10 p.m. And since then, prices responded very strongly. So maybe this whole NFT thing has some more room to run. And we'll see, Avalanche continue to run as they release this Topps NFT collection. So just wanted to quickly share that with you guys because it was close to my heart.
Don't blame you.
But I think that's all we got for today. So thank you guys so much for watching. And thank you, Mike, for coming on. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know our audience greatly appreciates it. And definitely head over to Mike's YouTube channel and his Twitter. Go hang out with all those other future millionaires. He's got some great content over there. Great stuff. And Mike, yeah, we really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming on. Any last words you want to say to our audience before we do some plugs here at the end?
Thanks for tuning into the show. If this is your first time at Market Rebellion tuning in, make sure you're subscribing to them as well, because they're providing this platform to give out this great information every day. And so just make sure you're supporting them as well. And then once again, CJ Monty, Mr. Dr. Crypto Jon, hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we sign off, I am going to put Mike's link in the description here in the chat. Also, you'll be on our friend Digital Asset News tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, he'll be coming on. Yeah, he'll be coming on my channel tomorrow. Yep.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
See you, Mike.